Why did you decide to run for president?
Isn't it obvious? No, I'm kidding. So I ran for president because I wanted to educate the American public about AI and the fourth industrial revolution and what was going to happen and accelerate the end of poverty. Right now, as we're having this conversation, GDP per person is around 83,000 a head, and that's going to shoot up because of AI. So at what level do you get to where you look around and be like, you know what, that's actually enough so we can alleviate gross poverty in this society? And if we don't make a move like that, in my opinion, we end up disintegrating and turning on each other, and like all sorts of terrible stuff happens. So I thought to myself, if I run for president, I estimate that I have a 15% chance of accelerating the addressing of poverty in this society. And that seemed like a fine way to spend 3 years of my life. It's like if I told you you had a 15% chance of speeding up the end of poverty, and I might like to think more people would take that mission on if I said that to each of you. I don't know if my estimation of my probability of accelerating was correct. But that's what I thought.
What was the most surprising thing about politics?
No, I was surprised at how fake shit was, I suppose. I mean, I'd say, like, if you want to...
In what way? Like, what exactly? Because I hear all the time that politics like dirty. Like, they try to like find some dirt on you, or someone's like, hey, tell us everything about like your life in case something comes out, we know how to handle it. How true is that?
There's some reality to all of that for sure. Now, I led a fairly boring civilian life prior to running for president. And the closer you get to being a threat, the nastier it gets. And so I was the likable upstart presidential candidate for most of the campaign. And the folks above me, you could tell, had very strict instructions. Do not waste any time tangling with Yang. Like, it's all downside, no upside. So what happens is every candidate in that environment has instructions from our teams, like who to try and attack. And 9 times out of 10, that person's above you. And so if you remember the race, like we joked with my team that I was like the Grim Reaper of presidential candidates, where as soon as I passed you, you dropped out. It's like the joke was, it's all fun and games until Andrew Yang catches you in the polls, and then like you're out. And did I catch up to Kamala Harris and have her drop out? Yeah, yes, that did happen. If you rewind the tape for the presidential primary in 2020. But Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, like all those folks, like anytime we had any interaction, they just like cut it off immediately because they were like, I do not, like, my team has told me, like, waste no time on Yang. And so because of that, I had in some ways a fairly benign experience, because candidates didn't want to engage, but the press was bizarre, where one thing that came out as an example is an MSNBC producer named 𝗖𝗢𝗡𝗡𝗖𝗧. After she left, she said, I was given a list of candidates never to have on air, and Andrew Yang was one of those candidates. So like there's stuff like that going around where the media, that was like something that I wouldn't have necessarily believed.
How did you single-handedly prevent Kamala Harris from winning the primaries in 2020?
No, I did not. It was just that I did better than her, and then she dropped out. The two major arbiters of viability in that environment were donors and the press. And so if either or both of those groups turned on you, then you ended your campaign.
Do you think, though, that maybe the press was a thing 5-6 years ago, and now it's all social media and algorithms?
Yeah, that's a big deal. So by the way, it is asymmetrical, where if you look at confidence in national media, as an example, it's maybe twice as high among Democratic primary voters as it is among Republican primary voters. So there's the holy trinity of Democratic media institutions that let Democratic primary voters know who is good to vote for. And that trinity is the New York Times, MSNBC, and CNN. So now the average person listening to this, maybe you don't care about what those media organizations are saying, but you know who cares are Democratic primary voters in New Hampshire, South Carolina, Michigan, Nevada.
But then you have to look at
the 4 states.
Who owns and controls those outlets? Like,
Yeah.
who's at the top making the
no,
decision?
it's a-
How do you, is it just like these people cozying up to those people?
Yeah. So if you rewind the tape again, when Joe Biden launched his campaign, the people that had his first fundraiser event for him were the owners of Comcast, which also owned MSNBC at the time. And so there was like a fairly hostile coverage environment for Joe Biden's primary rivals out of MSNBC. And is that stuff real? And again, as someone who like coming in was like, like professionals, they do their jobs. I experienced some things that made me understand why some people just think it's fake news, like think they're full of shit. I got it. I was like, oh my God, like some of that stuff is definitely happening.
What did you experience?
Well, again, like some producers being like, hey, not allowed to have you on. Like the biggest thing was MSNBC was actively hostile towards me at different times. And then at some point I was like, I'm boycotting MSNBC until they like acknowledge that they've covered me.
What do you mean
unfairly.
actively hostile? Like, what did that look like? What did they say about you?
There would be a fundraising graphic being like, hey, these are the candidates that raised the most, and I would just be omitted from that graphic. Like, let's say I was supposed to be like fourth in that graphic, it would just skip me.
So we go from like third and then fifth.
And would you tweet about them? Like,
yeah,
would you...
I'd be like, hey guys, like FYI, like I should have been fourth in that graphic.
And what would they respond to you?
No.
So they truly acted like you just did not exist.
Yes. And so then I came out and
crazy.
I came out and was like, hey guys, like what the hell? And then it got even worse. Instead of being like, oh yeah, like by the way, some of the things that the New York Times actually shrunk me visually by several inches in a photo.
How do you know they did that?
Well, because I saw the photo and it's like, I'm not the same height as Amy Klobuchar or whatever the hell. And then they actually had to print a retraction being like, oh yeah, sorry, we like shrank Yang.
What
was
does
it
that
just an
accomplish, though?
editor? Was it just like a random person?
By the way, so my team got livid about this stuff. I would just be like, I just blew off most of them. It's like, who knows? But like some of the things you were like, whoa, there was one time CNBC actually put a different Asian guy that was not me, like for it was
CNBC.
Like, it was I'm 90% sure it was CNBC. Like had a picture of a guy named Jeff Yang and said like Andrew Yang, like presidential
That's
candidate.
racist.
Like, and so. By the way, the subtitle of my book that you have up there, Hey Yang, where's my $1,000? The alternate title was Hey, am I racist or are you Andrew Yang? Which I have been asked.
That's right.
So MSNBC, like eventually I was like, look, guys, like I don't know why you guys are being such jackasses, but like if you just acknowledge that you've covered us like in a way that is not great. By the way, they already apologized for a couple things, so I was like, just acknowledge that you've covered us unfairly, and then we can move on. And their response to that was instead just to completely black me out for the entirety of the rest of the campaign, even when I made the 7th presidential debate and the primary, and people making the debate stage was like a news item where every press outlet would be like, hey, like Yang just made the debate. MSNBC wouldn't even cover that. Wouldn't even cover the fact that I made.
Why wouldn't you just sue them? I feel like that's the fact that they intentionally went in and shortened you. That sounds like you could easily sue them.
Oh, I mean that was the times. Like there was no upside, by the way, for a Democratic candidate, which I was at that time. I'm now an independent. I co-founded a new political party, the Forward Party. We're the 3rd biggest party in the country by resources. Congratulations to us. By the time I was a Democratic primary candidate, and there was tons of downside and no upside to getting into a food fight with the holy trinity of Democratic voting opinion makers. And if you fast forward to 2028, this upcoming primary, these 3 opinion makers are diminished from where they were, but they're still powerful, particularly the New York Times and MSNBC, among this Democratic primary electorate that I'm going to suggest to you all, by the way. The average age of a Democratic primary voter might be something like 55. And the average age of an MSNBC viewer, 57, something along those lines. So you might think, who the hell's watching these things? Why does anyone care? And people care less than they did, but they still can put their finger on it for a Democratic primary.
Did anyone go and try to like ruin your reputation or anything else beyond just getting excluded from media?
Life insurance is one of those things that makes sense for a lot of people out there, but most people just put it off because it feels complicated, expensive, or time-consuming, but it doesn't have to be thanks to our sponsor, Fabric.
Fabric by Gerber Life is term life insurance that you can get done today. It's made for busy parents like you. It's all online, it's on your schedule, right from your couch. You could be covered in under 10 minutes with no health exam required.
If you have kids, and especially if you're young and healthy, the time to lock in a low rate is now. And even if you have life insurance through your employer, it may not offer you enough protection for your family, and it usually does not follow you if you leave your job. Fabric offers flexible, high-quality policies that fit your family and your budget, including options like $1 million in coverage for less than $1 a day.
Fabric is partnered with Gerber Life, trusted by millions of families for over 50 years. There's no risk, and they even have a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can cancel at any time. Fabric also has free digital wills, tools to invest in your kid's future, and more, all right from your phone.
Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to protect their family. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/ICHclips.
Again, that's meetfabric.com/ICHclips. MEET fabric.com/ICHclips. The link is also down below in the description. Enjoy. Did anyone go and try to ruin your reputation or anything else beyond just getting excluded from media?
There was some very, very negative stuff. But it was, anyone looking at it was like, what? Like Yang made his employees sing karaoke at a company event. I mean, there was just some stuff where because karaoke is fun and awesome. But
so that was actually something they said you did.
Yes, yeah.
And what was the bad part about that?
No, I mean that's what I said, but it was that
they had to listen to his singing.
I didn't
ears were bleeding, and
that's really what they should have called out. I will say that wasn't for lack of trying. In that I had family members, friends, neighbors who all received this sort of interrogation if they would sit for it. Oh yeah. Like that, there was all sorts of effort to try to unearth skeletons.
And what do they do? Do they offer money? Do they say hey, here's a $50,000 reward if you give us some dirt?
There was, there was a lot of cajoling, or there were a lot of efforts and elbow grease put in. And one thing I will say to you guys is that some people just find talking to the press really appealing because you end up maybe quoted in the New York Times, whatever, but you also end up with a relationship with a reporter, which is currency in certain circles, certainly in political circles. I mean, there's a layer of professionals who actually interface with these reporters and feed them stuff, and then you can hire them for access. So
what were they at? So explain to me, boots on the ground, what was happening? They were showing up. And they were knocking on doors hey, Andrew Yang, just
yes.
Acting as what? What were they acting as a journalist?
Be hey, yeah, this is journalist X from the New York Times. Let's use them as an example. Be have you had any contact with Andrew Yang? You worked with him X years ago. You are his neighbor. You are this stuff would happen dozens and dozens of times. And then if someone were to say to them, it's yeah, been his neighbor, nice guy, fine, whatever. And then they would ask him 5 negative questions and being has he ever stirred? Has there been arguments from it? And after the person was no, none of the above, then they were just okay, nothing, click.
But then if the person was well, there was this one time, but I don't even know if it was, know.
Yes.
And then they're
it
we
might
have
have been.
You know what I mean?
Yes. And so they would call all of the people that I'd worked with over the last 20 years of my life to try and find. That's where they got the karaoke story. But they
was
would
true?
Call. I mean, did we have a karaoke event at my old company? Yes, we did. Did I give someone a microphone that maybe it was
so they felt pressured to do karaoke and perform?
I don't even know if we could post this anymore. But, we might get too much hate.
I'm just trying to think, if you handed an employee a microphone and they felt pressured that they couldn't hand it back because their job was on the line, and then they're oh, I have to sing and I don't sing and I feel self-conscious and it's dramatic.
So that means that you should not be able to run for president.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, no, but that is the level of detail, and you imagine what it would take to get that particular anecdote.
Yeah.
It's call everyone that has worked, and I've worked with a lot of people over my career. So you call hundreds of people, and then if 80 of them are Yang's good, Yang's fine, enjoyed working with him, they're nothing here. But then you find a few people who might have some axe to grind or ambiguous or like blah, 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 then they'll be like, ooh. And then there was one disgruntled person that I let go or whatever that they had like stories for days out of. And so that stuff is like infuriating.
And that was like everything.
But
was front
totally.
page news.
Here's what I feel. You have it easy in the sense that you growing up didn't have social media, and things that you posted to, MySpace back in like 2006 that people, I'm sure, could unearth. And people who are our age who posted everything to Facebook when they're like 13 to 16 years old, I'm sure there's stuff out there that you just would look back and cringe at, that a president 40 years from now, they're going to have their entire life.
I think every single buddy is going to have that, though. That's the thing.
But you're right, because I'm a Gen Xer.
Yeah.
And so social media did not exist when I was a teenager. And so my record is fairly clean, like social media or otherwise, because again, I'm a pretty boring individual. And it's going to be very, very hard for lots of people of a certain generation to take on any public facing role, because I can find some really rancid things you said when you were 14 years old. And by the way, I don't think you should be judged for that, because our brains aren't even complete at 14. And if I trash talk on, I mean, one thing that really distresses me is when people unearth various texts. I mean, who hasn't texted frankly, like off color stuff to your, and so a social media post, I don't even think most of that should be held against you until you're a fully fledged adult, your brain is complete at the age of 25, and you have a position of authority. Because even if you're like a civilian spouting off, it's like, I don't freaking care.
That's Uncle Joe. He's drunk again.
Everybody said something, 100%. And that's another thing. It's like, obviously, not to harp on it, but like the locker room talk that everyone was freaking out of. Obviously, what he said was not acceptable, but also every guy, and most
Not
girls,
me, Jack.
I know, most
Not
girls
me. You
say
might.
stuff that's just crazy for the sake of
girl
saying something that's
the girl
crazy.
banter is probably
The girl
just as rancid
It's
as the guy
probably
banter.
worse. Yeah.
100% worse.
I never said anything.
The take I want to share, and one reason why I think you guys are very, very important, is that you guys have created your own audience and institution, and you're trying to help people. It's positive. I find you to be very balanced. The way that our politics have gotten divvied up is that you essentially have the folks who believe in institutions, like some of these press organizations I was talking about, and then you have the folks who don't, many of whom have built up their own independent followings and voices. And these two worlds have been sort of naturally oppositional, because if, for example, your independent media, one of your natural things is like legacy media, dumb, slow, kind of full of it, maybe politically compromised, like all of the above. Now, you look at this independent universe, and I think that there are good actors and not so good actors. And then if you're a good actor within this universe, fantastic. You're like doing people a lot of good, and young people are going to actually be seeing your stuff much more than they're going to see some clip on cable TV or whatnot. So I think I'm probably someone jokingly called me, it's like I'm somewhere in this zone. And I'm someone who understands, look, these institutions are disintegrating and faltering and somewhat compromised and corrupt. And my goal is to try and get them to modernize and be better and do better and help solve some of the problems that are on the ground, which I do think you're going to need government to do at scale.